So that's about like what the shot looks like. It's from about like there up.
Cool.
All right. Good to go. So I'll start recording now. And I'll edit so that we don't have the front and back of this. We'll get lost. And I actually have to use this because we have another microphone right now. Or the wireless is messed up, so
All right.
easy to remain here. Let's see here. Okay, so if we could just start just as a formality, and this is like for what's called a slate. If you could just tell me your name, spelling, rank, and your position at the 103rd.
Erik, E-R-I-K, middle initial S, last name B-L-O-M. Senior Master Sergeant, 103rd, RQS. I'm a traditional guardsman, part-time, and I'm my official titles, superintendent.
Okay. Right, it's just good for that part. Now we'll start into like this. Okay. This part will probably be what's in the actual interview. As best you can. You don't have to, but if you can and you think of it, it helps. It also helps just for you, like to start, like if to include the question in your answer.
Yeah, right.
As you try to. Again, this is really kind of informal. Yeah. I want it to be relaxed. It's not supposed to be like any kind of super documented thing. It's just like, hey, this is genuinely what this is really for, is to capture what your experience was of this event.
Sounds good.
So good to go. All right. So if you, on that note, if you could let us know, like, what was your role on the team that actually got on board to step out on the aircraft for this mission?
Well, my role was assistant team leader, and I was the primary jump master during the operation. And then once we're on the ship, just like I said, assistant team leader, and then obviously just doing whatever medical procedures need to be done.
As far as the Jumpmaster role, for people that may or may not know, what does that involve in terms of, like, there were two groups of people that jumped. As a Jumpmaster, do you jump last with the last group? How does that work?
It can be done in a series of different ways. On this particular day, we elected to jump two sticks, so two different passes of jumpers. The first stick was 4 jumpers with a boat, a rubber inflatable boat, and then the second pass was there's 3 of us. So I put out the first pass, and on the second pass, I was the first man out, followed by 2 additional jumpers.
What are some of the most challenging aspects of that jump for this mission, as opposed to, say, other jumps that you do?
It wasn't too different from the training missions we trained to. Say some of the unique challenges, just dealing with the fact that it's 1,400 miles out and there's not necessarily a backup plan, but that doesn't necessarily make any difference. The difference is on that particular day, we, due to weather limitations, had to jump at, I think it was 1,400 feet. We generally like to jump considerably higher with that parachute system. So with that, it just introduces less time to remedy any malfunctions that you might have, twists in the parachute, or if you had to use a reserve parachute or anything like that. There's just less time to deal with malfunctions. Probably the biggest challenge.
I think it's like people are aware, and at whatever time they watch this, could be any time, but there obviously are fatalities that do occur with this kind of stuff in training in the real world. As that stuff happens, as a community and as an individual yourself, like, is that something that's discussed, and like, hey, what went wrong or right, or things that you guys bring into the discussion with your training, like, on those events that happen that you see in the news, that, like, for example, the one that just happened on Memorial Day weekend?
Just so I understand the question, do we talk about?
Yeah, so it's like, when those kind of accidents happen, is it something that's brought up?
Sure, whenever there's a fatality, anything in the Air Force, whether it pertains to any job, it could be a truck driver, it could be a parachute, or whatever it is, there's always an investigation. They try to learn from what went wrong, what led up to the accident, and obviously, was it equipment, was it personnel, was it training? Find out what the problem was, what led up to that incident, and obviously how we can learn from it. So that could be anything from equipment to training to, to a lot of different things. So of course they send those out, and we discuss them as a career field, try to learn. Sure.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was thinking. Like, I guess on that same note, is it something that is in the back of your head personally, or some of the maybe newer guys on the team? I mean, as you have more experience, I'm sure a lot of it becomes, second nature. You've done it so many times, but is there always that? Does the does it ever become where the danger piece of it just doesn't enter your mind at all? It just becomes a job part?
I don't think, I think that with people do things more, in anything, you become more experienced, you may not be as fearful of it, but I think you definitely need to have a healthy respect for it, that you're jumping out of a plane with a bunch of equipment, you know, with potential consequences or death. So I don't think you're necessarily fearful, but you have a healthy respect for the for what you're doing and the dangers involved. Does that kind of answer your question? Yeah.
So
I don't say I'm scared, but you know, I don't think anybody's scared. But a healthy, you know, there should be a little bit of nervousness keeping your guard up, doing something like that.
That makes good sense. The gravity of the situation.
Yeah.
With something like this, it being a night jump, like from somebody outside looking in, that seems like, you know, hearing some of the other guys explain that, you know, you wear like a green chem light on the front, red on the back, or green on the back, red on the front,
Right.
so, to avoid canopy collisions. Like some of these other things, it's stuff that's like, you know, practiced and trained on, but is it something that's done a heck of a lot as far as like night jumps like that?
Well, we night jump. We try to do it more as much as we can, but you know, it's just sometimes it's hard to do what we call full mission profile, where you actually jump on a boat and jump in your dry suit and jump in all the different special equipment, a rucksack, and all those different pieces. Sometimes it's hard to train to 100% standard. We definitely do it, but sometimes putting all those pieces into play just is kind of hard to do in a training environment. But we definitely do it, and we train to it, but on game day, there's always a little bit more, you know, we call it the pucker factor, you know, a little bit more involved, more on the line. I think one thing you're missing on that environment on an operational day, be it combat or something like that, is there's I guess the safety net kind of starts to go away. You know, there's not a boat down there to pick you up. When something goes wrong, is when things can go really wrong, because you don't have the safety and support network that we do in training to recover that jumper and take care of them. You're pretty much self-contained in that environment. So that is a unique challenge you have to be ready to deal with. If that makes sense. We don't have a boat picking us up and bringing us back to Gabreski, or a helicopter's going to take us to Stony Brook. You got what you got. You know, you're the rescue piece. So if something goes wrong for you, you got to understand you got to deal with that.
That's a really interesting piece that hasn't really been brought up quite that way. So I think that really puts it in context for people that are
sure
not,
everybody's
you know.
everybody that's jumping, doing operational stuff is fully aware of it. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest piece is the safety net goes away a little bit.
I know some of the guys talked about the idea of like when you leave that aircraft, in some ways you're mentally prepared for it. You could be in that water for 3 days. Who knows? You know what I mean? There's all sorts of like worst case scenarios that you're just mentally trained to, prepared for, and accepting as a possibility. Hopefully that's not the way it goes, but on a mission like this, are those higher stakes discussed, and is it like, what would be one of the more challenging pieces of actually, I guess, the phases? Like there's the jump phase, I guess, and then the rigging the boat phase. What was the more challenging piece of the jump phase for you?
Well, the jump phase in and of itself is a phase. There's the preparation phase, the jump phase, the boarding the vessel phase, the actions on phase, you know, treating medically. Then there's the extraction phase with the helicopters. But out of those phases, if I'm answering your question, I think the most dangerous or difficult phase is the insertion. So we call it the insertion phase, because we're actually exiting the airplane. There's most chances for things to go wrong or not as you planned during that phase, things you can't control. You know what I'm saying? That's the bottom line. So yeah, that's definitely the most risky of the phases of the mission, be the jump phase.
Absolutely. You think that, just to give a little context of what some of the members on the team, how they differ. So as opposed to, say, an active duty unit, as being guardsmen, we're made up of traditional guardsmen who also have a civilian function and a job out there in the outside world, and you would be in that category.
Yep.
So if you could talk a little bit about what that experience is like, what you do on the civilian side, and then, you know, what your feelings are about like having that mixed team. You think, is it an asset? Is it, you know?
Yeah, I think the paradigm of what the Guard was 15 years ago and what the Guard is now are just completely different worlds. It used to be, I mean, it was prior to 9/11 and going off to war, it's just, I think the active duty was a lot different environment than the Guard is now. Now the Guard deploys regularly in a combat role, actually doing a lot of operational missions, and everybody, not everybody, but there's a breadth of experience in the Guard that, at least on this team I can speak to, rivals active duty most definitely. In fact, in a lot of ways, because we're in the Guard, we have probably more experience than a lot of the active duty teams, because active duty, they have guys for maybe a certain amount of years, under 6 years, and a lot of people get out of the military. The Guard, people tend to stay longer, and we also get a lot of active duty people who've done their time in active duty, gain the experience, and now they're here either full-time or part-time, and that experience doesn't go away. So even though you might have done 8 years in active duty, and now you're a firefighter in the city, for instance, you still bring all that experience to the team and keep it here, and you might stay here another 10, 15 years building on that experience level. So I think being in the Guard, and we bring a lot of different experiences. You know, we have our new guys too, of course, but I think being in the Guard, we have a lot of experience grown in-house, and a lot of experience we bring from the active duty teams that kind of really bolsters our ranks and makes us, I think it's an asset, I really do. A lot of experience on this team.
Good stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that some of the guys, you know, there were several guys that actually took part and several guys that actually went out of the aircraft, 7, I guess, right, that
Right.
actually jumped.
Yep.
So were there, for some of the younger guys, because how long do you have in yourself?
Total, like 23 years, I guess, yeah, 23.
So a good amount of time invested, and the most junior guy would probably be Senior Airman Harton, right, Michael Hartman.
Correct.
So did you find that as you looked at across like all 7 of the guys that jumped, and you know obviously the guys in the aircraft too, but were there moments or any particular people like that you identified as like that was an impressive moment, that guy really stepped up to the plate with this, or that the air crew really did, you know, XYZ spot on us?
Yeah.
It's like were there moments in this mission that stood out to you as you think back on it?
Yeah, not to sound, you know, like I'm trying to pat everybody on the back, but it seems like being that it was, you know, several days long, I think throughout that time, everybody had their, at least in my eyes, their moments to shine and really step up to the plate. So, you know, everybody. I've been in this career field for about, I don't know, 17 years now, and this is, at least especially on the civilian rescue role, without a doubt, my most memorable mission. We got to do the most stuff that we've gotten to do on this team in a while. We just haven't been tasked with this mission. So being that we haven't actually done this mission in so long, I was impressed. I mean, genuinely impressed with everybody. I mean, everybody really stepped up to the plate, and whatever their role was, you know, from the medicine to the jump phase to the, you know, you might have been the guy tasked with safely getting all that gear on that boat, you know, with a swinging hook and davit. I thought everybody had their moment to shine. I really do, you know, without doubt.
Very cool. So if we could speak for a moment, you just touched on something of, you know, what you were doing before entering in this career field, and how that ties into, say, what you do in the civilian world.
Let's see, when we go back, prior I was a PJ.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just getting into the military, if you want to start there and just kind of
Yeah.
take us to.
Yeah, pretty much right out of high school, 17 years old. So I joined from a military family, brothers, sisters, father, all military, so I kind of was conditioned for it, if you will. So yeah, my brother joined a year before me. He was a combat controller, similar to this career field, same selection process. Went on to fly A-10s. Sister went to West Point. You know, father was a special forces guy. Brother went in security police, so kind of a lineage with this. But I came right out of high school, joined the Army for about 6, 7 years. Right out of the Army, took pretty much, yeah, maybe a few months off, that was it, and joined the Guard. I was going to be a police officer back then. 9/11 happened, so abandoned those plans and just stayed. I was AGR, full-time Guard guy for several years, up until 2010. And then 2010, switched over to be a police officer, which I've been since. Still try to stay pretty active with the Guard. I mean, it's a balance. I it's a balance, trying to keep active and be excel in this career field and that one. But I think I'm managing it. But it's just that's a unique challenge, is trying to do both these jobs and still proficient at both of them. But I think it's a good way of life. Like I said, I'm a police officer, so being able to have that civil service job, they're pretty understanding with me. Come to do my guard time, so I deploy about once every 15 months, and during those deployments, I'll stay on for several months to get ready, and then to do the deployment, and then demobilize. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it kind of just go back and forth to both jobs, if you will, kind of trying to stay present.
Absolutely, I think that was definitely answered.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm interested in, and we always talk a lot about how, like, you know, how your civilian employer is supportive of your military service. What about the military being supportive of your civilian service? Because obviously, as a police officer, you know, I'm sure that's demanding, and the experience you gain there, I'm sure, benefits you in the combat environment and otherwise, you know.
Yeah, maybe not directly attributable. I don't think, you know, law enforcement in and of itself makes me a better PJ. I think, you know, in the broader context, to say what everybody does, whatever it is in your life, it might not be directly attributable, but it's just life experience is always an attribute, you know what I mean? That's just part of life. So yeah, some of the experience and things I learned on that job, I think definitely indirectly, you know, benefit myself or anybody for that matter. Things you do in your civilian job are always gonna, in some way, shape, or form, hopefully be an asset to you, just your character, if nothing else. But does that get at what you're asking?
Yeah, that works. I was kind of just wondering, is the military pretty supportive of your?
Okay, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I could ask this unit. That's all I can speak to. Yeah, completely supports the guard, you know, civilian relationship. I've never had any problems managing the two, other than personal things. But as far as the unit giving me any you know, negativity, no, without a doubt, very supportive.
What was it like the day that you found out about this mission? That was a Monday, right? And were you at your civilian job and you got
actually
notice
that
about
day
it?
we had just gotten back from a trip with the military, which I took off my other job to attend, and I just got back. I was going to take that day off for the family, and Major Bowl called me sometime that morning, early in the morning, 8-ish, and so they were tracking a mission. So told my wife, I was like, I'm just going to run in, check it out, and see if it matriculates to anything. So ran in and quickly revved up to be an actual mission that we were going to launch on. So pretty much, yeah, it was a typical Monday morning, hanging out with the kids, putting the kids on a bus, and then ran in just to check this out, and actually ended up being, you know, being one of the few missions in the past 10 years we've launched on. So it was a good morning to be home.
That's something. I think as a dad, I can relate, and I'm sure a lot of folks out there listening, like, how does that work as far as being a dad and a husband? Like, here you're kind of, you know, ready to enjoy a kind of lax day, you get the kids in the bus, that's cool, and probably expect to maybe see him that night at, you know, after school or whatever, and then all of a sudden, what you thought, oh, let me just poke my head and see what's going on, and then you're gone for a week. Is that something that your kids or your wife are kind of like, oh, that's the way things go sometimes? How is that working
Yeah, it's
in
easy
your
to
family?
say. I guess that's kind of how it goes. But typically we have a little more warning than a few hours. That's not something we don't usually just go to work and not come home. So for me, it's pretty easy. I mean, I'm the one that just has to pack my stuff and go. It's probably harder on them. You know, I gotta give them a lot of credit. You know, they're the one that really. It's tough on them, but my wife was good with it. She's like, all right, see you in a week. I think she trusts. She's kind of used to it. We dated prior to this, you know, before we got married and everything, so she's kind of used to it. So she knew I needed to go. Yeah, to pass it up I wouldn't be happy. So she's like, I think in her mind, she's like, I might as well get on board and support it, which I give her a lot of credit for. She didn't give me any grief. She's like, all right, well, call when you can, be safe, and that was kind of that. Kids were already gone at school, so. But I think my son and daughter, one's just tiny, so she doesn't know as much, but they're like, yeah, I'll be back in a week. And they're used to me going away on these week jaunts, so they don't really probably think too much of it. Once they found out we were actually doing this, they probably thought it was pretty cool, so they were excited.
Did you have any conversations like that with your son over the over the time that you were gone? Did you have a chance to speak to your family at all?
No, we didn't.
And then when you finally got back, I guess you guys got back Saturday.
Yeah.
You know, what was it like when you kind of catch up with them? Was he like, "Hey, Dad," you know?
Yeah, they didn't get upset. I mean, we go away for months. They kind of don't like that, but in a week, like, yeah, I'll be home on Saturday. And by the time they even found out what was going on, really, we were safe on a boat. So they're kind of like, okay, Dad's on a boat. We'll see you next week.
Does the novelty wear off? Like, because obviously you do a pretty high-speed job. Yeah. So as a little boy, I'd imagine you'd be like, "Oh, my dad does all this cool stuff."
Yeah,
is he kind of like, "Hey, what did you do?" Or like, you know, or is he kind of like, "Oh"?
No, he loves it. Yeah, he thinks it's the coolest thing in the world. Yeah, he's pretty excited. So now I showed them some videos, which you have, and recount the whole thing, and yeah, they enjoy more my son than my daughter. She thinks it's kind of cool, but not
How
really.
old?
She's 4, but he's a 6-year-old boy, so he's
right
all
up his
about
alley.
it. Yeah, so they're pretty excited about that.
What about at the PD when you go back to work and they know what's gone on?
Yeah, some guys knew. Some, it didn't. And I think some guys found out about it, but yeah, once people hear about it, they think, obviously they think it's pretty neat. Pretty interesting thing to do. You could be supposed to be at work on Monday, you miss the week, and so it's a different week, than your mundane week. So, but yeah, they were really good. They don't. There's no as far as being gone for the week, like I said, I'm pretty lucky. They're pretty supportive of things like that. Really no problems leaving. So I'm lucky.
Do you find that, we spoke a moment ago about the idea of the experience as a police officer or being in law enforcement lending as a bigger picture to, just your overall experience as a military member and a pararescueman. But the reverse, I would imagine, there is definitely, benefit to having that kind of medical expertise and experience, bringing that military experience back to the civilian job. Yeah,
I'd certainly like to hope so. That I think the two kind of go hand in hand. I mean, just anybody military experience, most people should be used to dealing with stress, basic leadership, operating with different people, conflict resolution, all those things we learn in the military through a career. I think directly, attribute to being a police officer. Even down to being familiar with weapons, dealing with people, all that. Yeah, I definitely think it helps out.
I'm just curious, from when we talked earlier, you said like pretty much you almost listed out your entire family as having military experience.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like the only ones maybe not would be your mom and the family dog. It seems like,
Yeah.
Is there any sibling that was not in the military?
Yeah,
Even your sister, your brothers?
one of my sisters is not in the military. She
so
has
just one.
She has a normal job. Yeah, she has a normal job.
That's fascinating, though, to be from that big of a military family, like to work.
She works for
brothers,
defense
sisters.
contractors at Boeing. So.
Not too far removed.
No, not too far. So.
What do you think as far as this mission, because you spoke about like the level of complexity, and in some ways I think this is like an absolute, the definition of the career field of pararescue on the civilian search and rescue side of it.
Sure.
Everything that you train to is kind of almost utilized in this. How does this rank in terms of your experiences in your career as far as missions you've gone on?
Yeah, this probably ranked right. It is probably the most memorable thing I've gotten to participate in. Yeah, like not a whole lot of them going around, so we're just not tasked to do them that often. We hope that changes, but right now we just haven't been for some time. So it's definitely the most, if you want to use that word, complex, interesting mission that utilizes more of our skills than anything else that I've ever gotten to do in my career. Definitely the number one for that.
Do you think, because you were involved obviously in a very high-profile combat rescue, you guys won the Rescue of the Year award,
All right, yeah.
and that was an award that was for all active duty Guard and Reserve. That was like, military rescue of the year. Is that right? For that?
Yeah, whatever the title was, but.
So what was that experience like? If you like put it against this, obviously very different for a lot of reasons, but are there different feelings stepping off for that than this? The feeling of getting home or back from that versus this?
Yeah, I don't remember it. Someone brought that up in the locker room. I don't really remember having any feelings of, is this a feeling of danger and what's happening? Am I going to make it home? I don't really, those thoughts don't really come into my mind that I remember. I just didn't really think that kind of sort of thing. It's just another, not to diminish it, but it's just another jump in the ocean. We're going to get on a boat. We're going to do our job. You know, just can't really let it get to your head too much more than that. Or the same thing in Afghanistan. Just going to go because you don't know what's coming. You don't really know yet. You're just going to do what you're trained to do. So you're out there and it just evolves. You know what I mean? But no, I don't think it has any. You launch off and you're just going to do your job. I don't think it really has any different feelings. Kind of one and the same. You're kind of serious, but you're just going to do your job and oversimplify it. That's
an interesting piece, that the idea of like expectations, you know. So like as you kind of know and understand in each of those scenarios, to whatever amount that they have that they can give you, hey, this is what we know of potentially. Like I mean, some things were obviously wrong. Like they thought it was 5 patients, it was actually 4, and I'm sure in the Afghanistan scenario there might have been things that were different.
Same thing. Yeah, it was more than it was less. Yeah, actually the same thing.
So is there something in that, through being in for 23 years, that you just kind of, like you said, it evolves, you just have your mind taking it one piece at a time? And
yeah, I think that's probably the best thing you can do, is just one phase at a time, and yeah, just try to focus on what's this far ahead. You know, look at the big picture, but try to focus on each task, and you know, rely on the rest of your team to pick up the slack, you know, for you, hopefully, when we're not seeing the big picture, you know.
Do you find, do you ever like use visualization? Like you ever visualize an outcome that you want in terms of any phase of it, or the mission as a whole? Do you kind of like ever think about like, hey, you know, this is how I imagine it might be, and then when you're actually there on scene, it's maybe very different than?
Yeah, I think that's just inherent, and yeah, in anything, you have a way you think it's going to go down, what things are going to look like, what things are going to be like. You try to, yeah, that's what we all do, is try to, before you go into something, yeah, without a doubt, try to, how's this jump going to go? What am I going to do? I'm going to hit the water. How am I going to take my equipment off? How am I going to de-rig? If this goes wrong, what am I going to do? Where's my survival equipment? You know, how are we going to recover the packages? How are we going to get on that boat? All those different pieces, without a doubt. I mean, that's what you're constantly rehearsing in your head, of what optimal way things should go, and then deviate as necessary. But without a doubt, you're trying to visualize everything as best you can.
How did that play out in terms of like the actual patients? Like in your mind, as you guys were in the aircraft heading out there, you knew there was an explosion. Were you kind of imagining, I wonder what the condition of these guys are like, and then what you might have imagined to versus, you know, what it actually was when you were on the ship and actually got to see them for the first time and get your hands on and caring for them?
I don't think I could put a ton of imagination into what. We knew they'd be burned. They were going to have airway injuries, you know, skin, thermal injuries. Yeah, I think we kind of had that pegged about, at least myself, about roughly what it should look like. I mean, we've seen burn patients, been done burn rotations a few different times in my career, so yeah, that was fairly accurate in my mind. What I thought we would see was pretty close. Just, I mean, not 100%. It's going to be different in your interactions and how you're actually working on these people than what you might have trained to. But yeah, it was pretty. I think we had a pretty good image, or at least I did, of what they would look like.
Were these guys able to speak to you, and they spoke English, and was there the ability to communicate with them?
Yeah, we arrived on scene. They spoke limited English, but good enough to carry a basic hello, you know, here's where I'm hurt type of the basic communication. But they were in pretty severe pain. They were able to tell us that. They were able to tell us they were having trouble breathing, and the guys on scene first administered pain medications, and that definitely helped. They were able to talk and have, you know, basic conversation. It wasn't too in-depth for several hours, up until they had to be given more pain medications, where they started becoming a more coma-like state, if you will, once we kind of had to give enough pain meds to bring them to that, you know, comatose state almost. But yeah, they can carry on basic conversation.
Did you find that the medical aspect of this was really challenging medically? Like,
Yeah.
were there certain parts of this mission and the medical experience for you that you walked away from feeling like, hey, I thought I performed well, or I was glad I got this, that, or the other training, or maybe things that we here at the 106 have exposure to that maybe other units don't, through, you know, access to, you know, hospitals or relationships Doc Rush has? Were there
Yeah.
pieces of that you felt that, you know, impacted your experience?
Yeah, I think we could all, you know, you hope you know everything on, you use that term game day, but I think the reality is you don't know everything, and I think that's one of the good things. We took 7 people, so something you're not strong in, hopefully someone else is, and yes, we had some really superb guys with some superb knowledge doing the medical treatment on this particular mission. I mean, just think everybody had a good, like I said, use that breadth of experience from things they brought from, you know, from Jed, good friend, to, you know, just recently through PA school doing all his rotations, you know, to, and Jordan's got a ton of experience, you know, from Afghanistan and brought all that to bear, you know, I mean, Hartman, yeah, all those guys just recently going through a lot of med refresher and update training, and that's just, you know, even you know, Major Vieira, who used to be a PJ, was able to, you know, help out with medicine. Everybody kind of was able to bring their piece, so you didn't feel like it was necessarily you who had to do everything alone. So I think that really helped out. If a particular thing you weren't the strongest in, that you had a good support team behind you, which was good. But as far as the rest of your question, yeah, we do a lot of extensive training, and Doc Rush is a big advocate for that, doing burn rotations in the city, doing trauma rotations, you know, in New York City, work at the hospitals, to doing live tissue and cadaver training, you know, on as lifelike as you can get. So when you actually put your hands on a patient, you've seen it to the best you could in a training environment. So doing all those refresher type training is about the best thing you can do to keep your skills up. And without that, I think it would have had a different outcome for sure. You know, not as beneficial for those guys.
Do you find that's common among the career field? Do you think that exposure maybe is something more unique here? Like, I'm not sure.
As far as the
ability to have access to that level of like medical training.
I can't say. I don't want to speak for other teams because I'm not exactly sure what everybody else is doing. So I don't want to misspeak because, like I said,
Sure.
I really don't know what everybody else's training is. I can just say the availability of training here is pretty bar none. It's been a lot of different assets given to us to keep our medical skills up for sure.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic that he's actually able to function in that role as a medical director for the whole career field and like bring that knowledge to bear for everybody.
Yeah, he's.
But I think being in New York and having that access has got to be a big difference maker. Yeah,
huge asset. Like doing things. A lot of the different labs he's put together over the years is, yeah, definitely makes when you're seeing it. Maybe not the first time, but when you're actually seeing it, it's comforting to at least have something to fall back on that it's not the first time you've seen it. You know, it's really beneficial.
What do you think are some of your biggest takeaways from this experience, like as far as, you know, things that you will look at as moments that went exceptionally well or that will really lend to helping you in your career in the leadership role that you're in moving forward with the team?
Specific to leadership, things you learned? I don't know, anything specific, but it's just...
Like, in one way, one of the things I noticed in some of the videos, it seems like something like yourself, Jed, some of the guys that have more experience are, in some ways, it seems like playing that mentor role to some of the younger guys, like kind of coaching them through a specific thing, or it seemed that way with the escharotomy.
Yeah, I think with the escharotomy, that was actually the first one I'd done on a actual patient, but have done them with Dr. Rush's labs down in with LIJ, which was the first time I've done it on a real patient, but just having done that in the past was extremely beneficial. Whereas, you know, Jed Smith, he's done them in actual burn centers, so I wouldn't even take credit for coaching the other guys. I would kind of pay that forward to Jed. He was definitely, like I said, everybody had their own knowledge of medicine, but it definitely give him a good pat on the back for being a huge asset on the medical side, without a doubt. I think most guys would say that. Huge asset on being very current and proficient in those skills. So I think everybody, you try to mentor when you can, when it's appropriate, in when any task that you excel in, but then it's also just, it's not just it's the military in the end of the day, so you have to, when in leadership position, you know, take charge and be that person, you know. But as far as the medicine, yeah, definitely Jed really stepped up. But as far, and to answer your question, as far as things you learn, just I guess if I had to say something, just communication, just interpersonal dynamics, listen to everybody. Everybody has a good idea. You know, that definitely was not the environment to be necessarily be a directive environment, like maybe some combat type things or that environment. That was a environment where everybody needed to, throughout the week or the first 36, 40 hours, more of a forum took place a lot of times. What does everybody think? Everybody can weigh in and say their 2 cents on how things are going to go. Ultimately, someone has to make that decision, but it was never a directive. It was more of a group decision on the way things were going to go, and I think everybody appreciated that and felt their opinions were warranted, and it actually just really worked out for the overall for the benefit of the patient. So if I had to give you something, that'd probably be it. Draw on the group, draw on everybody's skills, and you know, maybe they're seeing something you're not, and I think that's a huge thing, in that, especially in that environment. You know.
Good stuff, yeah. I think, did you happen to, like, I guess, some of the things I think that are unique about this mission and the time we're living in is that, like, one of the nurses from the burn center, Sophia, in Portugal, was able to contact us through social media and reach out and, like,
crazy.
give updates on the patient. I mean, stuff like that. Have you ever had any of that kind of experience in your career before with other folks you felt?
No, I don't. The missions usually fly in combat. You might get an update from the clinics and stuff as to somebody's condition, but that's probably not even that normal. On that one particular mission you were bringing up, we did have some correspondence with, I think just one of the individuals, one of the guys, sent some emails and things. I think he tracked us down. I think Dougherty tracked down and sent us some thank you type emails, and I don't know where that relationship's gone, but they've kind of given updates a little bit, but not a whole lot. This thing is to be able to track them through the burn center and continual treatment and where they're at and their status. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, real time with the technology for sure.
What was your experience like with the Portuguese search and rescue? I know there was some hesitation not knowing their skill sets and equipment and what they had to bring to bear and how it would work getting off the aircraft and, or off the ship for some of the folks that were leaving with them. How did that unfold, and what were your thoughts on that, how it went down?
Yeah, I wasn't really too apprehensive. I mean, they're flying out there in a helicopter, you know, to pick a patient up off the deck. I mean, you never know I've never worked with them. Wasn't really too hesitant. I figured they'd be proficient if that's what they're flying out there to do, and they definitely were. You know, they're from the you can kind of know right away from their air crew, their pilots. They were spot on. I mean, you can tell by their approach and where they hovered and set up for their hoist mission that they knew what they were doing prior to their rescue swimmer even coming down the hoist. Kind of had a good feeling that they were up to the task for sure. And once they deployed their swimmer to do all the multiple hoist iterations, yeah, without a doubt, they were spot on. They did a great job. Probably better than we expected. We figured they'd at least were up to the task if they were out there volunteering to do the mission. But I think they surpassed most people's expectations. They really did a spot on job. It was a precise hoist work they were doing out there, for sure.
Great stuff. What was the interaction with the crew like, both when you were caring for the patients over the 36 hours or so, and then actually once they left and it was just you guys stuck behind, how were they with you?
The crew was, I think there was definitely a language barrier with most of them, especially the main bulk of the crew. I don't know what their language. I didn't personally interact with most of them a whole lot. The captain, the first mate, and a few of the other, probably the officers, I think that's what you'd call them, were a little more capable in language. Yeah, they were, especially the first mate, jumps out at me in particular. He was actually tasked with the medical treatment, but he wasn't a medic, so I think he was really anxious and happy to have us get on the ship and take over that. He was very, probably the most involved of the crew with helping out, getting things set up, and giving us any assistance we needed. Actually, the whole crew was actually really, during that initial couple hours when we were moving patients and getting set up, and they were, they were trying to lend a hand wherever they could. It's just at a certain point, wasn't a whole lot for them to do once all the gear was on board, secured, and then they just kind of filtered off to the rest of the boat to let us do our job. So I don't remember having a ton of interaction with them. Once the patients were hoisted off, yeah, they were very hospitable. They took care of us, but I think the language barrier was there, but so it was kind of limited interaction. But like I said, they were hospitable, gave us everything they needed, fed us anything we wanted, communication-wise off the boat. The captain, they, definitely did their best to accommodate and take care of us.
Was there a mood or an atmosphere, you think, that you could recognize when you got on the boat, and then even as you left, did it change over time as far as the other folks that were there? I mean, obviously it's pretty serious mode for them. An explosion happened there. Some of their friends.
Yeah, I think initially there was definitely, as you'd expect, from the moment you're exiting the plane, they're calling radio calls, hurry up, they're dying, sort of thing. Even as you're getting ready to, once you're within that radio range, they're calling up, please hurry, which you'd expect when you have people dying on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic. So it was kind of, they were more at that, excited.
Panic,
yeah. Maybe a little panic. People are essentially dying in front of them, and they had no pain meds, so it's probably pretty traumatic for their friends to see them like that. So, of course, getting on the boat, they're in that excited stage. Get on. What do you need? Let's get your stuff set up. So to them, that probably seemed like it was taking a long time. They just want to ultimately just see that their shipmates were taken care of. Then once that first hour, we had some pain medications. They'd poke their heads in the door, see what was going on. The two patients seemed more relaxed and at least sedated. That I think they kind of realized it's out of our hands. Now these guys are going to obviously do the best they can do to take care of them, and then they a bit more relaxed. And then of course once they were exfilled off the ship, it was probably even more of a, they've made it this far. I think most people at least surmised they were going to make it, and it seemed to be a bit more relaxed atmosphere.
I guess as we're closing out our time, do you think that, what are some of the biggest things you'll remember about this mission, being involved in it, and just how it went down? That in some ways, I guess it's kind of luck of the draw. Whoever's there at the time gets the nod. Everybody trains up to the same things. So I guess, is there a special connection, maybe even more than there usually would be, with even like, say, the folks that you went on the Afghanistan mission with, or this mission? Is there a different feeling of like that you went through this kind of a thing together, and how does that, what do you take away from that as a member of the team?
Yeah, I think anytime you're go on a mission or even a challenging school or what have you with with certain friends, teammates, you definitely forge a bond that you learn things about each other, your strengths, your weaknesses, how you perform, and you develop a bond, and definitely look at each other a little different afterward. Luckily, I think everybody on this, there was no no negativity, so it was definitely, at least I'm pretty sure that's the way now for most guys would say the same. It was a pretty positive experience. That everybody was able to bond a little bit closer and definitely take away, you know, a closer friendship and bond as teammates, without a doubt, with those guys for sure. I mean, you know, it's pretty simple as you can say it.
Great stuff. Anything that you want to say, or something that you maybe we didn't touch on? And
I think you hit it. You kind of covered it. You know what? I will say something in case my wife watches this. Yeah, it's the having that family support thing is huge. It really is. It kind of goes unspoken a lot. But yeah, having that piece at home that'll definitely not have you in the back of your mind. What are they doing? Are they freaking out? Are they, you know, are they in distress? Are they able to handle having friends and family and the team back home able to take care of your family? They were checking in, making sure, you know, kids, if they needed daycare, if they needed to go to school, guys back at the team level were taking care of all that stuff. And I think that to each guy that's out there doing their job it's huge, you know. It kind of goes like, whatever, but it's huge, and I think all the guys really appreciate it. So, yeah, the guys back home, that's solid work they got to do back here, taking care of all that stuff, and yeah, just giving a little bit more credit to your family, you know. They definitely do their part, for sure. That's it.
that it couldn't be a better ending. Yeah, that was really.
Yeah, to get it out
That's
there,
great.
right?
I mean, it's something that we say a lot in
Yeah.
the community, but to say it and echo that home after
Yeah.
you know, talking about all the stuff we talked about, I think really brings home just how important that is. So,
Yeah.
great stuff, Senior Master Sergeant. Really
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
No, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and stop down
All
here.
right. I had to say it.
Yeah,
My wife's going to watch this.
No, that's true though. It was really, it was touching, man.
Am I the only one that said that?